now I get it. Like, I understand now that you have to have a business mindset, and I had to have gone and done that coaching course because I wouldn't have got it if I hadn't have done that. But I had to still have this desire and passion for the social issues that we need to address as a community, not the non-profit sector versus the for-profit sector.
You're listening to Justice Matters with Tim Buxton, a podcast inspiring the fight for a world where everyone belongs. Ruth Knight is a PhD researcher and lecturer at QUT's Australian Centre for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Studies, of which I am a very proud student. Now, Ruth is passionate about social enterprise, and we spent a lot of time unpacking what that is in this episode. She has dedicated her life to justice work, to empowering the underserved and the hurting in society. She has a huge heart, and she has an incredible story. Guys, I would not be surprised if at the end of this podcast you end up heading back to university to study social enterprise or nonprofit studies as a result of listening to her speak, just like I did when I decided to go back to uni. Guys, here is my interview with Ruth Knight. Dr. Ruth Knight, it is so good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Is it weird to be called a doctor still?
Yeah, it is actually. It really is. It's taking me a long time to get used to the idea that, wow, yeah, I'm a doctor. But as my kids say, I'm not a real doctor.
No, you're well deserved of the title. I mean, goodness me, that's a phenomenal achievement. Did you ever think you would be a doctor?
Never in a blue moon.
Really?
I was terrible at school. In fact, I failed year 12. I was... Anyone who knew me at school would say there's no way, she would ever even go back to university, let alone come out with a doctorate. So it really is very surprising that I suppose that I built to the moment where I was so intrigued with the non-profit sector and what I could do to make a difference. And that led me to completing a PhD. And I'm telling you, it wasn't all happy days. There was a lot of tears and tantrums and a lot of stress involved in that. But yeah, I am proud, very proud of myself, but also very honoured that I now am able to not only work at a university and share what I've learned with many other people, that I get to talk about research and the importance of good research, especially around non-profit and community and social impact issues. Yeah.
Well, I have the privilege of calling you my lecturer because you roped me into joining the ACPNS, which is the Australian Centre for
Philanthropy and Nonprofit Studies.
Thank you. I almost forgot. But and you're a researcher as well. You're neck high in getting ready to launch a new course. Can you tell us about this course?
Well, one of the great things that we have been doing for a number of years is having courses around social enterprise. So social enterprise, as you know, is a new form of business, and I won't say new form, but it's a form of business that looks at both economic and social outcomes. So it's a form of business where it's commercially run, so there's an economic viability about the business, but the purpose of the business is to create social impact. Now, it has been around a while, but I think in this day and age, it's really building momentum. Yeah. The whole sector, the idea that, wow, actual fact, business can create social impact. People are very, very excited about it. So for many years, we have been running that course and teaching people about social enterprise in our postgraduate courses. But the very first time in 2021, we're going to be offering that course to undergrad students. So that students from anywhere, from any university, can come and do this course. And they'll learn about social enterprise, how you develop a business plan that not only looks at your economic impact, but looks at your social impacts as well.
Yeah. Well, I just remember the one subject that you taught me, which was social enterprise, the amount that just blew my mind when I thought, hey, there's so many opportunities. It's the future for-profit businesses as well. It's this hybrid model that kind of, I think there's just so much to learn about. It blew my mind, and you're a phenomenal teacher. I think it's because there is such this heart of care and compassion. I remember you got me into this course. I had my first assignment due. It was an annotated bibliography. I never heard of it before, and I was petrified because I just didn't even know how to use this referencing tool, all the references we needed to do. Right. And you took my phone call and you said, all right, here's what we're going to do. Let's do a lot. And this was in the middle of COVID. We really couldn't even see each other at that point. And you're like, I'm going to jump on Zoom. I know a couple other students. Let's do this. And you helped me get that first assignment done. And now I'm halfway through and I'm just absolutely loving it and so thankful. But you've got this compassion about you, this heart to help and to serve. Business, though, hasn't always been your main focus like it is now. We'll talk a bit about the social enterprise
You're
stuff.
You're going to make me start crying already. I told you.
But, you know, when you're a nurse, is that right? Is that kind of your background? I'd love to get a bit into where it all began for you and your heart to really help and serve. And
Yeah, my career has been quite a journey.
Yeah.
As I told you at school, I wasn't academic in any shape or form. I wasn't really into studying. But I knew that I wanted to do something of the helping profession. Didn't really know what that was. But I failed Year 12, so I wanted to be a teacher, funnily enough. That was my one and only goal. I wanted to be a drama teacher. But because I failed Year 12 so terribly, they didn't accept me into uni. So I thought, okay, well, what do I do now? Well, yes, maybe now. But at the time, it was probably not the right moment for me to really go to university. But it also obviously made me feel a bit of a failure, I can't go and study what I really want to do. So I was really quite lost. I didn't have a plan B. All my friends were going off to university or they were getting work and I didn't really know what I wanted to do or where was my next step. And what happened was that I read a magazine, like New Idea, it was just a off-the-shelf kind of magazine. And I just read this amazing, incredible article about Mother Teresa and her charity, the Missionaries of Charity. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened, but I just said, I want to go there. I want to go to Calcutta. I want to go and see this organisation called Missionaries of Charity. And so I did. I packed my bags. I was 18.
You're
and
kidding.
This is a few years ago. So there was no internet. There was no, my poor mum. I'm thinking back now going, my poor mum. I just literally packed my bags and said, see you later.
Come on.
And I went off to India and I arrived in Calcutta, did not know anyone, anything. I was, 18. And I got lost on the very first day that I arrived in Calcutta. It was the most scariest moment of my life because,
what happened?
Calcutta is a really big story. Do you want to hear it?
I do. Getting lost in India the first day you're there.
In Calcutta. Calcutta is a population of millions.
Yeah.
And beautiful Indian people. I love the Indian people, but they're very different to a little white 18-year-old. Okay, here I was,
I'm sure they were quite enamoured with you.
Everybody looks at you. You walk down the streets like this because it's so populated. And to me, it was a massive city, and I'd never been there before, and just everything looked the same. And you have to watch where you walk because there's not really any roads and streets, because it's just the sights and the smells and the sounds of India is just overwhelming. Yeah. Overwhelming.
It's like assault on your senses.
It is assault, yeah. And so I got lost. I didn't know, and I didn't see another European or anyone I could ask anyone of, for hours, and for 8 hours. 8 hours I wandered around the streets of Calcutta.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was when the sun was starting to go down, I started to get a little bit scared because I really didn't know where I was or how to get back to where I was staying. And this is the story that after 8 hours, and it was probably about, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it occurred to me that I probably should kind of pray because that was the only thing left to do. I'd asked a lot of people directions, but I didn't understand what they said.
My mum always told me it's the first thing you should do is pray, but quite honestly, quite often,
it was the very last resort. And I went, the only last thing I have to do is to pray, right? So here I am, and I just went, God, please help, one of those really short, desperate prayers. And I looked up and I thought, oh, my goodness, I'm standing outside a church. And here I was standing outside this massive, it must have been an Anglican or something, really they have some very big old churches there. And I thought, oh, this is a church. And so it's gated, and so I was peering through the gate and hollering out, hello, anybody here? And this lovely little Indian gatekeeper, they had a little gatekeeper there, and he came out, and all I could think of to say was Mother Teresa. That's the only thing I can think of saying.
Oh, my.
And he said, come. He literally came out the gate of the church, pretty much took my hand, and I am not kidding you. We were literally about 3 blocks down from Mother Teresa's mother house, which is where I was trying to head 8 hours earlier.
Oh, my goodness.
And he just said, here. And he just took me right to the door. And I was at this point the relief and the kind of wow. I was, partly in shock, partly relieved. And I knocked on the door. And a beautiful little nun opened it and said, welcome, welcome. Well, took me in, and I sat down inside the mother house, just again overwhelmed with what this had just occurred. And this beautiful American lady came up to me. She said, hello, where are you from? And I said, I just arrived and I don't know where I am. And I told her the story, and she said, I'll take you back to where you're staying.
Yeah.
And from then on, I stayed there 6 months. Yeah, working with the Missionaries of Charity, both in Calcutta and in Delhi. And I worked with a beautiful English missionary in the northern part of India as well. And I just had the most incredible 6 months that changed my life, my life completely. And I credit that to where I am today and what I'm doing today, because I went back convinced that I was going to become a nurse and I was going to go and work back in somewhere like India, wanted to go and do development work and felt very strongly, that was my calling then. So I headed back to England. This is where I lived at the time and where I grew up. So I went back to England and applied to go to nursing college, which is what I did, and became a clinical nurse. Then I went on to do tropical medicine. So I studied extra year doing tropical medicine in the preparation of going somewhere to a developing country and doing something. Afghanistan was actually one of the countries I wanted to go to. Now, this is a long time ago. I never even heard of the place before back then.
Really?
But I knew that, I knew that they were doing operations on the eyes, like Fred Hollows. And I really got very interested in the concept of maybe going out to field hospitals and doing operations in a country called Afghanistan, which I'd never heard of. And anyway, I didn't end up doing that, but nevertheless, the training of being a nurse and learning about health and community health was really then what took me then into the community. And I started working in England in community health. And
so year 12, failure.
Yes.
You study nursing after this incredible, inspiring – I could just imagine those 8 hours you're sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? And then finally when you are greeted by the nurse or the American nurse that
Yes.
says, you hear this is
Yeah.
it. I could imagine this thought, well, this is right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And the flood of emotions that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you would go through. But here you are now, completed how many nursing qualifications and your doctorate.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. And I think it goes to show that, it doesn't take all the qualifications to start. It actually takes the heart and willingness to just go, get on a plane, say, Mum, I'm going to India.
Yeah.
And you never know what doors
Yeah.
and what path may take you.
Absolutely.
I want to dig in a bit more about your healthcare industry and maybe how that switch from healthcare to more of an economic kind of focus that you bring now. What was it that really you saw were some of the greatest needs in helping in the developing world with and even with your youth work as well in England as well? You can tie a lot of that into. What were some of the issues that you faced there? I'd love to kind of get your perspective on that.
So what happened is that I did my nurse training. I, again, thought, well, I'm going to be a nurse now. That's, I switched a little bit from going overseas, largely because I met my future husband and he wasn't as keen as me. But I focused then on England and working with young people in England. Now, I had actually grown up in a foster care home. My mum and dad were foster carers. And so I already had a great understanding of the issues surrounding child protection, foster care, those kind of issues. And so there was already in me this sense of social justice and working with those who were underprivileged and, abused. So what happened was that when I, again, was thinking, well, what am I going to do now? If I'm staying in England, what does that look like for me? And I saw this job advertised, which was running a community centre for young people, homeless young people.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that sounds really interesting and challenging. Remember, I was still only 24 at this point.
Wow.
And I didn't think that I would get the job, but I did.
Wow.
With no experience of running community organisations. I just trained as a clinical nurse in a hospital, so I hadn't done really any community health up until that point. But I was given this opportunity. This opportunity was given to me, and I just loved it. I just loved it because what it meant was that every day I was working with young people who were homeless. But because of that, I got to understand the deep issues and complexities that surround homeless young people. So, in those next 4 years while I was doing that, I
was
got
the real
to see
education.
Everything.
Yeah. Wow.
It was a deep dive into why homelessness occurs and what are the systematic and systemic issues about child abuse, child protection, homelessness, drug abuse, trafficking, domestic violence, all of those things that come along with homelessness and are either the reason why it happens or the consequences of homelessness. So this massive, deep dive into, well, how do we solve homelessness and what are the underlying issues that we need to think about and address before because it's not just about giving people a home. It is not just about, here's a house, here you go. Now we've solved it. There's, so many issues that we need to address before we give homeless people a house.
Yeah, I mean, homelessness is the symptom, right? And it's like you can treat the symptom, but you're not dealing with the root causes.
Yeah.
Let's take homelessness, for example, or at least what you learnt in that time where you're serving as the leader for this community homelessness program.
Yeah.
What did you discover were those root causes? I mean, I don't think they would change so much today.
So this is where I have to be really careful. I don't get too emotional because the biggest thing I learn is that we're all hurting.
Yeah.
We all hurt for certain reasons and we all try and cope with our hurt in different ways. And a lot of people treat it with drug abuse, alcohol, relationships, domestic violence. You know, all of those are ways or reasons to try and cope with our lives and, you know, the hurt that's in our lives. And young people who don't have a really stable home or a stable relationship with their parents, you know, they miss out on a lot of the education and the support that even kids who do have great parents and do have stable homes, even some of those young people, you know, if they have high anxiety or if there is disability or if there's, you know, all sorts of things going on, you just can't say a homeless young person is this
Can't
type
put them
of
in that
person.
category.
No, you can't. So what I've learned, so I'll get back to your question.
Yeah.
So what I've learned is that we're all hurting in some shape or form, and it is the system that we need to address about how we prevent that hurt becoming destructive. Wow. And putting in place really early on, which is why I went on to work with young mothers, because I started to go back, going, how early do we need to work with people to ensure that we put protective factors around them? And I'm not saying that we need to just get rid of hurt, okay? You know, bad things happen.
Yeah.
You know, that's just life, you know, and we all have a form, you know, a little bit of anxiety and we all have things that happen in our life. So I'm not saying get rid of that, but how do we get protective factors around young people in particular and families so that they are able to be resilient, so they're able to, you know, overcome some of those challenges and hurdles in life and hopefully not end up homeless or mentally ill or suicidal or what all those, as you say, consequences are because of not being able to cope with their hurt and their need for love and security. Yeah.
I love that emphasis on relationship is a source quite often of just healing. When a program won't always fix someone, but a compassionate person in your life that will actually care for you, walk alongside you, listen to you, and understand maybe why you're reacting or responding in this way. Thank you. Yeah.
And you know what? I still get notes and emails and texts from young people that I've worked with years ago. And it is never about what I did. It's always about how I responded to them and the relationship that I had with them and the fact that I just encouraged them, affirmed them, you know, showed some empathy. And, you know, I mean that deeply touches me when I get any kind of feedback, even from students actually, even today, that feedback, even if it's just a little text that says thank you, I know it's never because of what I taught them or the book that I told them to read or the mark that I gave them. That's nothing to do with it. It's really about how encouraged they felt and how supported they felt and maybe a couple of words that I might have said in the right moment, right time. And so, so that's what I hope to do. I hope to always just say the right thing at the right time that gives somebody the ability to say, yeah, I can do this. Yeah. Or, yeah, I'm okay. Or, yeah, you know what, somebody is thinking of me.
Yeah. It's marrying justice and the need to address an issue with compassion, right? Like, I've experienced your encouragement along the way, your belief in me that you're going to make it, you're going to get that assignment in, don't worry. But whatever it may be, I think we overcomplicate what, and I think that's really helpful for anybody listening, is we can overcomplicate the difference that just the simplicity of being kind to somebody, especially who might even be acting out, might be expressing their hurt in an anger way, but when we respond with empathy, kindness. Justice Matters is brought to you by You Belong. If you'd like to learn more about their work, empowering refugees to integrate and thrive in Australia, head on over to youbelong.org.au. There you'll find ways to get involved, volunteer, and financially get behind the several initiatives they've got going on. There's also a stack of articles and blogs that you'll find there that are really informative and engaging. Now, did you know this podcast is actually a video podcast featured on YouTube? Just search Justice Matters TV on YouTube and watch each episode right there. And while you're there, hit subscribe and get notified each time a new video drops.
There was a really moment in my life where I had to challenge that myself, and that was when I wanted to form my own organisation. So I'd been working in the sector, but I felt that there was a massive gap. Now, this is in the Gold Coast now. I've been working in homelessness in the Gold Coast and realised that there was this massive gap for teenage young mums. I was running a homelessness service but was having to turn away young mothers who were pregnant. And, this is teenagers who were pregnant or parenting. And I was struggling with this for ages, for a long time, and going, why is there not someone out there that's offering hope to young mums, these girls who get themselves pregnant, they're pregnant, whether, whatever's happened, but there's no one who will take them in, no one who can offer them a safe bed for the night, nothing. And so that led me to think, I'm just going to have to do it myself.
And get the spare bedroom out or make a spare bedroom?
No, I wanted to set up an organisation.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to set up an organisation, and not just me. There was a few of us that I encouraged and said, this is where the gap is in, a need in our community. Yes. And if we're going to do something, I really believe it's really addressing homelessness right at the beginning, because we don't want to perpetuate that cycle. If those young mums are homeless, they're having a child while they're homeless. It's just horrific. So anyway, we went through the arduous task of trying to set up a charity. And as you know, it's not easy.
Not a lot of work.
And I'd never actually set up a charity myself. I'd always worked for existing, organisations. So I went down this journey of learning how to set up an organisation. And I remember distinctly a conversation that I had when I rang, I think it was the ATO, and rang up and said, can you give me some information? Or I can't remember what I was asking, but something along the lines of, now, I'm setting up this charity and I'm just checking I'm doing the right forms and everything. And she said to me, Mrs. Knight, we don't need any more do-gooders. Those words, those exact words, right?
Wow. And
I was floored. I was like, what? Did someone just actually say to me, well, number one, that wasn't a nice term. I don't think she was using it in a nice term. She was kind of accusing me of being a do-gooder.
Wow.
And I was setting up a charity for young mothers. Like, how is that possible that someone would feed that like, it's too hard. You're just a do-gooder. Don't do it. Well, that didn't stop me, did it?
I'm sure
because
that put
just
fuel in your rocket ship.
Fire in my belly. I just thought, my goodness, I'm definitely going to be a do-gooder. I just turned that around and said, I'm going to work this out and I'm going to work out how to do this.
Yeah.
And we did set up a charity and we did some amazing things as part of that organisation. But I suppose telling that story is because I've since realised that it is people who are do-gooders that are passionate about, justice and social justice and how we can really make a difference in our community. And if you see a gap or a need figure out how to do something about it. Don't wait till someone else is. Now, if there's someone else doing it, like join forces, collaborate, go and volunteer, go on their board, whatever you can do to support if someone's already doing it. But if there's a gap or if there's someone not doing it, we need to talk about it. We need to say, here's an injustice. Here is something we need to address. And it takes people to be, stand up and say, well, this is going to be hard work, but let's do it.
I thank you for the passion that you bring and the inspiration. You're inspiring other students to see all the different avenues that they can do that. There isn't just one cookie-cutter way of making a difference. Like you said, you can join other people. You could start your own. You could start a for-profit business that actually
that's right.
can address not only the immediate need, but can build and impact others, whether it be through employment and purpose. So how did then to kind of fast forward
That's
to
a good segue.
that kind of the many ways in which people can make a difference without feeling you just have to be a Mother Teresa, let's say. There are so many avenues and ways to do that. And where did the switch happen for you, though? Like, how did you then kind of pivot and turn to the social enterprise realm?
Yes. So here I was working in the nonprofit sector, very compelled by the issues that the nonprofit sector addresses. But I really was frustrated that nothing seemed to be changing. And also that I was finding it hard to make a living, that, I was a consulting at this point and I was trying to work with charities, but nobody has any money, and I certainly never even wanted to charge them because I felt terrible about, even charging people for my advice or my consultancy. So I was thinking, I've got to do this. I was trying to think about strategically, how could I do this a different way? And I thought, well, businesses have got money. And what I know is as helpful to a business, as a nonprofit in some respects. So I thought I'll go off and train as a business coach, because if I learn how to coach businesses, I can charge them, and then I can, do all the things that I want to do with the nonprofit sector, cheap or for free, right? So this was my big plan. So I was running a business myself, so I thought, well, I should, it was all going to be helpful. So I went off and did a business course on top of the PhD that I was already doing.
Oh, my goodness.
But I really felt that this was important to me.
You don't know how to do things in halves, do you? It's like all or nothing.
I know. But again, it was the most incredible opportunity for me to see how businesses operated and their mindset, and for me to learn how to run a business and go, hang on, business is all about making money and it's all about how many widgets can you sell, and, all this very, very focused on the money and the customer, and, but I learned a heap of good stuff from that. But I couldn't pull myself away from the fact that, but hang on, how is that reducing homelessness? How is it reducing unemployment? How is it addressing some of the issues that are deep in my heart that I can't just pull it out. I can't just sort of say, I'm going to forget that now, And so this is where this kind of journey for me started, and I started to go, well, hang on, is there an opportunity for businesses to actually address social issues? And I started to learn about social enterprise, and I started to look at this model, and I started to just do a whole lot of research about it. And then it wasn't until ACP&S, so the Australian Centre for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Studies, actually said to me, Ruth, we actually want you to come now and be part of our teaching team and teach others about this. And at that moment in time, I couldn't have been more better suited to then going, yes, now I get it. I understand now that you have to have a business mindset. And I had to have gone and done that coaching course, because I wouldn't have got it if I hadn't done that. But I had to still have this desire and passion for the social issues that we need to address as a community, not the non-profit sector versus the for-profit sector. So, so this is how it's happened. And of course, I'd done my master's in governance and, you know, so I'd learned a lot already about running and managing non-profit organisations. But this is where then I started to really pivot towards the social enterprise and started to get really excited. And when you get students who are from the non-profit sector go, why have I got to do this little unit on social enterprise? I'm not a business person. I don't want to do that. And I go, just wait and see. And I see them at the end of the unit.
Oh, yeah, it's the favourite.
I get that all the time and them say, wow, this is the unit of all of those other, you know, accounting,
I was
law.
going to say, when you're competing against like board governance versus social enterprise and making a business plan for a social enterprise.
Ooh, you know, they come out and say, wow, this is possible. And it is what we really need the future to look like, because it's hard work fundraising. And I'm not saying it's bad, it's great, but it's hard work. And, you know, so to blend that idea of...
I love that idea of blending. I like the idea of taking the best of non-profit, right, and merging it with the best of for-profit.
Yeah.
I know so many businessmen who are just so successful businessmen, and yet I hear them say to me all the time, I've spent most of my life and career in non-profit charity work. They're envious of me and they're like, I just wish I could I just want to give up doing business and I just want to help and serve the poor. And without saying, you know, quite often I've said in the past, no, you just do what you do and give some of your money to non-profit as if that's the answer.
Yeah.
But it's not the answer. No. What if you were to pivot and turn and transform what you do where it's not just about, hey, is our stock price rising? Is it just profitability, unfettered capitalism, whatever you want to call, which is the end goal quite often, you know, of business. What if we were measuring how are we doing when it comes to our impact on the environment? How are we doing when it comes to, you know, how we're impacting the social good of human beings? Is this healthy for them, their minds, their bodies, you know?
Who are we employing? You know, employment is such an incredibly important thing for people who are homeless or mentally ill or have a disability. Yep. Now, you don't have to have your whole workforce with a disability, but even if you had a percentage of your workforce that you knew couldn't go and easily get a job in another situation, you'd be changing those lives and those families instantly by giving them a job, instantly. You'd be giving a homeless person the respect and dignity they needed to go home because now they have the money for rent. Now they have a home. Right? Now they have a home.
Independence now. They're not in a state of dependency, paternalistic kind of...
Absolutely. Put them in a course so that they learn about resilience and mental health at the same time. Just give them a little bit of PD alongside their job. Now that person is learning about resilience and mental health and how to turn up for work with enthusiasm. You know, like you can change a life so easily through business. But you can obviously do much better things like that. You can look at human slavery in your supply chain. I was just talking to a company the other day who was trying to sell me something. And I actually said to them, so what's your human slavery principles? You know, tell me, have you looked at your supply chain to make sure there's no trafficking or human slavery? And he said, oh, I've never thought about that before. And I said, well, why not? This company must get their products or supplies from somewhere. And most likely there's an overseas part of it as well. This company has never been asked by a consumer, what is your stance on human slavery and your supply chain? Now, so, you know, hopefully I've made that person go back and actually ask some questions of that company. But a company can easily make a difference by actually thinking about their supply chain and thinking about social procurement, what we call social procurement, which is buying from social enterprises. Don't go and buy from a company that just only cares about profit. Go and buy from a social enterprise that actually is making a difference. There are so many wonderful social enterprises that you can buy things from. And just simply through your purchase, you are making a difference to the people
on.
they employ or their supply chain or their suppliers in some way, whether they're from overseas or even Australia. You can make a simple but huge difference through your purchase.
It's keeping people accountable, right, as well. It's keeping that business accountable, as well as not only having an impact with your purchase, it's hopefully making big changes at the top where they actually...
Yeah.
Wow. As you could see, we could probably pick any topic in this and riff off of it. What have been some of the highlights of your more recent work in this social enterprise? It could be with lecturing. It could be this new course you've got coming up. I mean, what's some of the things that are really...
look, I think my highlights are when I actually see and hear students who take what they've learned and they run with it, whatever that is. And in this case, seeing people who take the idea of social enterprise and go, actually, I want to do that. And they go off and actually do it. And then, they give me a call or I watch them on social media and go, they're doing it. They're really doing it. Now, that just gives me the biggest buzz, right? Because you never want to just be preaching or just talking to people and going in one ear and out the other. You want people to go, wow, what can we do with this? And then, because that's my goal now, is to not work with one organisation. It's to work with all of these organisations because they're all leaders. There's many, many people that come to our courses, and so hopefully I'm the little stone, and I'm hoping that I'm making the ripple effect and they're going out. So I might be making a big difference that I don't know about. Yeah. But that's my hope and my goal. So, but any kind of little feedback that I get about that, or if I see something that I think, yes, there's someone who's been in my class and look at what they're doing now, or they've been to a webinar, or they've been to my Tea and Buns, which is my little community of practice that I have every month.
Tea and Buns, is it
Tea and Buns
on Facebook, or how do they find out about it?
If you follow me on social media, so LinkedIn or Twitter, I always talk about Tea and Buns, which is once a month. I just basically open my office door, but in the virtual sense. So it's a Zoom call. Anyone is invited, and we talk about all sorts of different topics and issues, And so that is another way of me just talking to people about issues that are important to them, issues that are important to the sector, research that's come out, anything. It's a really wide array of things that we talk about. But anyway, so my highlights are those, that all that little feedback that someone has taken and gone, it's not just gone in one ear, and it's really made a difference to them and their work.
Well, did you know the last people that I interviewed, that the live podcast right now as we're talking is Mantua, a social enterprise.
To it.
With and I thought this would be perfect bringing you in, having this being the latest episode. They were brought under the wing of, I think, Tom Allen and the White Box Enterprise crew. And it just is so phenomenal. There's a whole kind of group of people that are trying to provide all the coaching and support and the finances to help get these social enterprises off the ground, just like Mantua Sewing Studio, which is doing something very close to my heart, which is empowering especially those that have a refugee or migrant background, providing them the dignity, education and training, and then a job.
So the reason why we need that community of support and mentoring and education for social enterprises is because we need people to teach them business skills. They've usually got the social stuff down pat.
Sure.
They understand what's leading them to this idea that they want to do something to help the community.
Yeah.
It's the business side that these people who are running social or starting social enterprises, that's the thing that they really need help with.
Right.
So,
And they've probably got the passion and the enthusiasm to go with it too. I mean, starting a business is one thing. If you don't really passionate about it, it's probably not going to get very far. Because the minute you hit the first hurdle, you're like, well, I guess let's try something else. But if you're passionate about something, they've got it. They just need the railroad, right? They need the budgets and the business plans to help keep that train on the tracks there. Totally.
So my other really exciting thing that you mentioned was the new course that we're running in next year, which is an undergraduate course. So this is for business students. Actually, it can be for any students, but it is a business course unit. And young people who are just starting out on their undergrad degree can come and do this unit, can choose it. It's an elective, but they can choose it and learn about social enterprises and learn right at the beginning of their studies that there's such a thing as social enterprise, and they can finish their degree and actually not have to wait until, or even maybe even start up their own social enterprise, that there is this thing, that there is this industry that they can join, and it will give them so much more fulfillment.
Oh, come on.
You know? And so we're so excited about opening these young people's eyes to the concept of social enterprise, which many of them may have just, like, they've heard of Thank You Water, or they might have heard of, you know, a couple of like more famous ones like Who Gives a Crap or something like that, where they might have gone, oh, what's I know that's not kind of a traditional business, but they don't really understand what it is, or that it's a social enterprise. So now we're going to have the opportunity to teach them about this.
That is so exciting. And when does that start? That starts the teaching
next year. So, first semester in 2021.
Oh, so good.
Yep.
Well, I know you're right at the thick of trying to get everything together, but it sounds like it's already got a lot of interest. And I've loved thoroughly doing the ACP&S course, that postgraduate. I tell you
Come
what.
on.
Having been a founder of a charity myself, and realizing I've learned all the things I'm doing wrong to start with, but also, which is good to actually know. I mean, we're fairly early days, only a few years old. And like anything, things don't always start out in perfectly well. It just starts by just getting in there and having a crack. And then as you mature, you grow from infancy to adolescence, you realise the need for all the board of governance things in place, the fiscal and ethical components to make sure everything is done well. So I'm learning a lot, and hopefully it's
So you're not mad at me?
I'm not mad at you at all. I'm learning again how to be a student. I have to say too, I love being able to connect the academic world with this as well, because researchers, you being one of them now as well, you've achieved so much, but researchers provide us with incredible insight and information to help us know how we can adjust and change the way we do things to for the future. And so even just kind of delving into that research, critical thinking, instead of just reading a popular book for my inspiration, you know, there's some powerful journal articles out there, a realm of study that can, really be so valuable.
I haven't read a novel in years.
Really? Oh, goodness. Wow.
Look, I like going back to university like someone who's been driving a car and is very confident driving the car, but has never actually had an instructor sit there and say, look, actually, this is a really good way, more efficient or effective way of doing driving. Let's say that, use that analogy. And so you can be a very confident, and I was certainly before I went to ACP&S myself. I'm a graduate myself, and I'd been in the sector 20 years, working in the community, running organisations. There were elements of my work that I felt very confident about. Sure. But when you go to university and go and do study at this level, which is the master's level, you kind of you get calibrated, and you kind of go, oh, I'd forgotten I wasn't doing that as well as I should have. It's like having a driving
totally. I don't
lesson
think I'd pass my driving test now. I failed 3 times to get the first time.
So it's kind of like that. So that's when I tell people, like, come and do this course, and they say, but I'm working in the sector. I'm already a leader in the sector. And I say, yeah, but you should still come and do this course.
Even if you can't do it, find someone within your organisation, put them through it, the value that they will bring.
That's right.
And there's scholarships. I'm grateful to be a scholar myself, someone that got one of the scholarships on offer, and there's ways to do it. And they get amazing lecturers like you that really care for you and support you and really will bend over backwards to get you through to the other side.
And then to be able to, because the sector, I'm talking now about the non-profit sector and social enterprise, but mainly the non-profit sector.
Yeah.
We need to elevate the professionalism of the sector. And there are a lot of people like myself who train in a trade like nursing or social work or whatever it might be. You get your undergrad and then you just kind of become part of the sector, but you don't really go back and learn around governance and leadership and, you know, impact measurement and, you know, all of those really critical things that we need for the community to understand how professional this sector is and that we're making a difference. We're not just talking and being do-gooders.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know,
we are
really professional about what we do and, you know, the impact that we make.
You know, you make a great point. I think it's one thing to just have an idea and have good intentions, but to sit down and build a plan and to be like, is this actually going to make a difference? Is it just all outcomes? I mean, outputs, right? Is it just all stuff we're doing?
Yeah.
Because the charity industry, I've seen it overseas. You would have seen it overseas.
Yeah.
Often can do a lot more harm by just doing stuff than by actually sitting back, assessing how can we do programs or meet a need that it's actually going to have a positive impact.
If we're serious about making social change, we have to start measuring and reflecting and reviewing and taking it very seriously about the impact that we're making, because we're not doing good enough. Like, we are really not doing good enough. And even in Australia, we have millions and millions of dollars going into the sector through either the grants or donations, and we still have incredibly bad stats on homelessness and domestic violence and poverty and child abuse and all of those terrible things that we want to address and we need to be looking for solutions for. And so, we need to be very accountable and start taking it seriously, and we want the community to know that we're taking it seriously.
And I like the way you kind of you emphasised, obviously there's a wide variety of issues, but how important employment and education actually is to getting to the root of these issues. If we can provide training and education, which is empowerment, employment, and throughout, whether it be through our businesses that we create or opportunities that we provide, it has a powerful ability to address those systemic problems, right? When someone is empowered enough to take care of themselves, to provide for themselves, they feel dignity that they've graduated, they've learned. I mean, there's so much to that, and so much what I love about the whole realm that you're leading us into, which is so exciting. Anything else that's kind of on the horizon, Ruth, that you haven't shared? You're a very busy person, so is there anything else that is on the horizon? Well, I'm working on a
whole lot of things, really, again, around that research. And my PhD was looking at culture. And that's my other, really big issue that I want to make a difference in. I want to look at the health and well-being internally of organisations and how we are, first and foremost, looking after our staff and looking after ourselves and how we're running organisations with the best possible culture. And so, that's my other really big interest. And how do we do that? Because when you think about non-profit organisations and social enterprises, they are usually working with or for traumatise people with domestic violence, all of those, again, social issues, and it is quite stressful, and it is there's a lot of trauma for
vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that we have healthy staff, healthy volunteers, people who are passionate, enthusiastic about what they're trying to do in their work. And if we don't have good culture, good organisational culture, and good leaders who understand how to lead their culture and how to make sure that our staff and volunteers are, healthy mentally and physically, spiritually, whatever it is, we've got to make sure that we look after the people that are in this sector and that are making a difference. So that's my other, really big interest, and how do we do that? And I would like to see, here's my goal, I would like to see every organisation, not just nonprofit, every organisation I would like to see have a culture plan. So just as if you have a budget or a marketing plan or any other plan, because it's important for your business, I want to see every organisation have a culture plan where we understand how we're building and nurturing culture so that we get outcomes, right? We've got to focus on outcomes, but how do we do that in a healthy, supportive, enthusiastic way so that people continue to love working on social issues and the social outcomes that they're making.
Phenomenal. How can people keep in touch with you? How can they follow you and learn more about this stuff that you're doing?
Well,
so you said LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, definitely.
Ruth Knight, Dr. Ruth Knight.
Yeah, Dr. Ruth Knight. Come and find me on LinkedIn because I'm always sharing what's going on. Twitter as well, you'll find me there. And also just give me an email or just look me up at ACPNS's website. So you just Google QUT ACPNS and you'll find the website and all the amazing research that ACPNS does, our courses, how to get in contact with us, everything.
And if you want to study with ACPNS, either their postgraduate studies, but the new undergraduate course, you will have the privilege of learning from yours truly, and I highly recommend it. I'm loving it myself. It is challenging, but anything good, right? Anything that I think stretches you and pushes you beyond your limits. I mean, what a testimony. Here you are, Dr. Ruth Knight. Never even thought you'd even step inside a university. I'm so honoured and privileged to know you, and thanks for coming down. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Thank you.
Carving out this time, and we've got to do it more often, eh?
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. My conversation with Dr. Ruth Knight. She's incredible, isn't she? Look, if you want to learn more about her tea and buns conversation that she has quite regularly, if you want to find out more about the courses at QUT that she's a part of, head on over to the show notes. I'll upload all the links there and other ways that you can follow her or get in touch. And as always, you can hear the rest of the conversation where I sit down with her and ask her some bonus questions. You can do that by heading on over to patreon.com/Justice Matters, and there you get all the content for a small donation towards the production of this podcast. $5 a month gets you access to all the bonus content as well as behind the scenes extras, and you can also interact with the podcast and myself a little bit more there. Now, speaking of this podcast, it is up to episode 19. Can you believe it? We have got 19 episodes in the can. That means there's just one more episode for season 1 to round out, and it is with none other than the Mayor of Toowoomba, Paul Antonio. I'm heading up to Toowoomba and I'm going to interview him live in person. I cannot wait to bring you the last episode of season 1. I can't believe we've got there. Now it's time for the credits. And first off the ranks is music artist John Art and David Gungor. They provide the music to this podcast, and it's under their group name called The Brilliance. That's who they're known by. Go check them out. They have some really, really good stuff out there. Thanks, guys, for giving us the music for Justice Matters. Now, as always, my shout out goes to Jose Biotto, the audio-visual expertise that you provide in producing the show every week, man. Thank you so much. I really do mean it. And lastly, there's one more way you can support the show. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, you can share any of our videos or episodes in any which way you so choose. By getting the word out, you help us to spread the word and the content that we're producing here, which I love doing and I feel so passionate about. But you also ensure that more people support us and get behind us so we can keep doing it. Can't wait to start recording season 2. Now that's a wrap for today's episode. Please join me again soon for another show, Justice Matters. I'm your host, Tim Buxton. Thanks for listening.